Good evening and welcome to the third and last of our Ian Ramsey Centre seminars in Science and Religion for Trinity Term 2013, appropriately enough at Trinity College, Oxford. Very pleased to welcome this evening Dr. Tams Dávid-Barret, and he's going to be speaking on collective action, shared intentionality, and the origins of religion. Dr. Dávid-Barret is a postdoctoral researcher in the experimental psychology department here at Oxford, and he works with Robin Dunbar, one of the preeminent evolutionary anthropologists of the world. Dr. Dávid-Barret is also a fellow of this college, where he tutors in economics. His research uses mathematical models of behavioral synchrony to explain the emergence of sociality, and to examine how bonding in social networks may facilitate shared intentionality and collective action within the group. This approach raises new questions, such as how natural structures of social networks emerge, how group identity and religious traditions may form, and how demographic transition affects the onset of modernity. Along with mathematical models, his empirical work concerns the relationship between agent-level sociality traits and the microstructure of social networks, gender differences in friendship formation, and mate choice dynamics. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Dr. Tams Dávid-Barret. Thank
you. Right, so thank you very much for the invitation and the introduction. Where should we start? So when I got this invitation, I think it was November, and I was very proud, and I thought, right, of course, yes, I'd love to interpret religion within my work, and I work on models of sociality, where sociality comes from. And the closer I got to today, the more I thought, this is a very increasingly interesting question, and it's not as straightforward to place religion within my work as I thought. It's not that it doesn't belong there, it's just much more complicated. So what you will see here is a very first draft. So please be patient with me and give me the benefit of doubt. Right, so I'll start with my main question, and this is my main question of research in general. Humans, we live in very weird societies, because the building block of all the building blocks of our societies are dyadic relationships. We have one-on-one relationship with a number of others, and this is a primate feature. All primate societies, of which we are one of the species, of course, are having exactly the same kind of one-on-one, expensive, long-lasting, stable, dyadic relationships. And the feature of these primate societies is that they cannot grow large. Those species which can have large groups, aggregating species, they have very fickle, unstable, cheap relationships with each other. And they can grow very, very large. So the largest recorded was a Mongolian ungulate with 250,000 or so individuals in one herd. Of course, we have even larger groups. So the question is, how did this come about? And what are the traits that allow this? And how is it possible that humans can break the group size barrier that primates have? And what I will hypothesize today is that, can you read the very top? Just about, right. Maybe we should put the light off a bit. Right, a little bit. So what I'm going to hypothesize today, and I'm going to play with this a little bit. Excellent. Not is that religion played a role in this, and rather sneakily, I'm not going to define religion up until the very end. Right. And this is going to be the structure of the talk. So I will go through a set of problems that any group living species have. So you need to know who the members of your group are. You need to deal with free riding within the group. You need to coordinate the group. And as the group increases, these will be ever more important. And I will introduce the first solution, a propensity to believe in a supernatural. And I will show you how that might solve some of the coordination problems, which will allow you solving some of the free riding problems. Again, ever increasing group size. And at the end, I will return to group identity. So we will go down here, up there. Group size is increasing all the way. We are having different problems and different solutions. And the supernatural will be the cornerstone of this story. Right. So we are a group living species. That means that not only we exist in a group, but almost all what we need for our existence is coming from a group. Our food is produced mostly in a collective action by the group. Our shelter is produced by the group. Our clothing is by the group. Our defense from others is by the group as well. Without the group, we just can't exist. In fact, many hunter-gatherer societies, the worst possible punishment is ostracization, which results in very high likelihood of death. So we need to sort out how to live in groups. So the first problem is, if I'm alone and I want to be in a group which is at least 2 people, I need to somehow recognize who the other one is. So there are species that are having very, very simple group technologies. When a group's technology, group's production function, if you are an economist, is extremely simple. Say you're reducing the probability of being hunted. So if there's a bunch of lions and I'm a wildebeest and I'm alone, and the lions will eat one wildebeest, that's going to be me. If there are 2 of us, suddenly it's only 50% probability. If there's 10 of us, it's only 1/10 chance that I will get eaten. So this is a very easy and very, very easy technology for the group. And then you can have very, very large groups with this. But of course, the problem is, can you see it? Yeah? All right.
Is it possible to turn the front light?
I don't know, is it? I don't know what's happening. Right, is it better? Oh, my nice pictures come out now. I see. Right. Can you see the scary shark? All right. So those are a bunch of wildebeest, and I don't know whether you can see there's a lion hunting for them. It's a scary lion. And what's interesting is that all of them are moving away. Yeah. So again, these guys are moving in one go from the shark. The problem is that this is very simple. Yeah. So if you're living in a group where the groups are actually having a much more complicated technology on the group's level, yes. So for instance, this bunch of meerkats here, then your contribution to the group's collective action is expensive. Yeah? So it's not just you're around and you might get eaten, that's your contribution to the others. You actually have to do something. And look at these guys here. There's a cobra. Look, they're eating and they are fighting the cobra. They're not eating at that time. And they might die. So this raises a problem. When what you are contributing to the group is expensive, there is a chance for free riding. Why don't these guys go away? We've got all these groups where we see a chance for free riding, expensive contribution to the collective group, to the group's action, and they are not cheating. So the question is why? And there are 2 main sets of explanations. So one of them is a biological explanation, which is something that was discovered, invented in Oxford by Hamilton, who said, if your behavior is driven by a set of information that is shared with others, your relatives, then when you are sharing them, it's almost like you're sharing yourself. You're including their fitness into your fitness calculations. So what you would expect, that to have very large groups, you would have to have very high relatedness among the individuals, so they do help each other, and you would have to have very high fertility, so that you can grow very large. So there are large groups like that. Social insects are like that. Yeah? Bees ants, termites, the relatedness is very, very high within the group, and the fertility is through the roof. And you've got these enormous big swarms and hives. The problem is, what happens if you don't have enough kin around? If you're a kind of species where the relatedness is low, and you have only a few kin. How do you grow the group large? Because you will run into the problem that the others will not help you. And then economics suggested an exchange-based solution. If you have repeated interaction with others, then you can invest in a relationship. I help you today because then you will help me tomorrow. And you help me tomorrow because I help you the day after tomorrow. There's reciprocity emerging, which solves the problem. And evolution in a set of species, and we are one of them, use this solution to build up a social diet, a one-of-one relationship, which is long-lasting, stable, and expensive, which solves exactly the problem. It provides you with a repeated interaction with another individual with whom you build up reciprocity. So that's a solution. You can actually grow a bigger group with that. But it has a consequence. Because if you have a given budget to make friends with others and to maintain friendships with others, and you have expensive relationships, you will not be able to be friends with everybody in a large group. You'll be friends with only a few of them. So suddenly you have multi-layered groups. In fact, if there's any kind of differences among the groups, you might end up in a situation where you're not very high status individual and you're friends with only a few other very high status individuals. And the high status individuals will be other end of the scale. You might have a hierarchical society emerging just from the fact that your species is the kind of species that solve this problem of group size by inventing these social diets, these limited number one-of-one relationships. And primates are the primary example for that. And of course, we are primates. So this leads to another problem. And the problem here is if you have these kind of societies, when you have a few relationships in a very large group, then it takes a long time to come to some kind of behavioral synchrony within the group. If the group is trying to do something together, and typically these ones will be complicated things that they will try to do together, it takes time for everybody to come to the same page, which is very different from aggregating groups. So if you look at, for instance, a flock of birds, and there's a predator coming towards them, you will perceive as if the flock split, and the predator flies through, maybe catches a bird or not. But you perceive a movement, an action from the flock. But the flock, of course, doesn't exist in any of the minds of the birds. All they are doing is they are trying to optimize their relationship with a bunch of other birds. They are aligning their direction of flight and the speed of flight, and they're trying to get away from the predator. And just that is enough to create this overall effect. It's cheap and very, very fast coordination. The problem is that in congregating species that have this limited number of friends and limited number of and hence multi-layer system, you cannot really do that. So imagine that you are in a jazz orchestra with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 individuals, this one. By the way, notice that most jazz orchestras and classical music chamber orchestras are 6, 7 maximum. Yeah? The reason is because you need to synchronize with all the others at the same time. You have to pay attention to that many lines of music. It's very, very difficult to move beyond. If you move to a larger number, we, as you know, human culture invented a conductor. A conductor will make sure that you are synchronizing across this large group. And that's exactly the problem that you are having when you are expanding the group size beyond those that you are directly related to. It slows down synchronization. In fact, we are modeling this, and that's part of my work, to model this process of how a group is getting to a behavioral synchrony. And you can see that as you increase the group size, with the number of others with whom you are friends being the same, the speed of coordination slows down exponentially. So this group has a real problem. And this goes back to my original conundrum. How is it possible that we humans live in these primate-like societies where our friendships, our relationships are very similar to other primates, other apes, and still we have these enormous big social units? This is Mexico City with 19 million people. If this was a bunch of chimps, 90 million chimps, that 90 million would go down very, very fast. Look, Mexico City is expanding. Yeah? It has an ever larger number of people. So how is this possible? So some of the solutions were suggested by Robin Dunbar, whose group I'm working in, who suggested that maybe there's a relationship between the size of one's brain and the size of the group that one lives in. So what he observed, and look at this top graph here. So this would be the size of the neocortex relative to the rest of the brain in a host of primates, including humans. And this is the average social group size. And there's a very clear relationship between the two. To have a larger group, you need to have a larger brain. In fact, in a model that we've been working on, we simulated exactly this process. So down here, now I'm talking about this graph here. Down here, this is some kind of measure of the processing power of an agent on the computer. So these guys are imaginary things living on the computer in my simulations. And this is how much processing power they have to calculate the social information that they are getting from others. And this is the maximum group size that the group is able to reach before collective action collapses. Yeah? So look at this curve down here. This is the simplest form of communication method when I can only differentiate myself from everybody else. I cannot tell others apart. And in this, if you are increasing, look here, if you're increasing the brain size, group size does increase. If I get more social information about our shared collective action, the group will be able to grow size, but it hits a limit. And above this limit, even if you increase the brain size, you will not have the group size increasing. So one possible trick is that, right, I'm going to switch to a cleverer communication method. So maybe I can do, instead of just taking everybody as the same, I can differentiate among them, which is this curve here. This is an expensive communication method. So for small groups, there's no point doing this. But it allows you to break through this group size limit. You can increase your group size by just having a cleverer method of communication. And you do that by increasing your brain size. So you move up here, and the group goes up. But again, you hit a limit. And then we thought, right, how about we put in language? Could we somehow put into this model the concept of these agents on the computer having some language? So if we thought, right, how about they pass on third-party information? So you're not only synchronizing what your own intentions are, you are telling the other agents on the computer what you just have heard. What was the intention of that guy over there? And it turns out that this is a very expensive thing to calculate. This is in log. So this is a very, very expensive thing to calculate. But increasing brain size would allow you to hit through this limit and increase the group size again. Again, at one point, hitting a ceiling. So maybe some of the solution, if you are living these dyadic primate-like societies, to explain the large groups, maybe some of it is that you've got large brain and you've got language. And in fact, if you look at humans, to reach these group size, we've got very large brain and we have language, which is, of course, costly in itself. But the problem is that we go back to this problem. Even if you've got very, very clever guys, and these guys are already, very clever, because they can do 6 if you're one of them, there's going to be a limit of synchronization. You can't go above that level. And here came the idea that was together with James Carney, the gentleman with the green t-shirt and the beard in the last row. When we said, what if we think that agents are trying to share intentionality? So instead of just passing on information, they are trying to share, trying to get to a group level shared intentionality. And what if what they are passing on is the intentionality they're having, the intentions they're having, and they're sharing, and somehow you get together to a group level shared intentionality. And then what we thought, right, can we put it in a model? In a model where you've got these dyad-based societies, and what happens? And what was very interesting is that we could say, right, who are these agents? How are these agents getting to a shared intentionality? Let's imagine 2 cases. One is that agents meet with each other, and they are getting to a shared intentionality one-on-one with their friends, or they're assuming that some kind of external compass, an external intentionality with which everybody is trying to get synchronized with. And what we found, to our surprise, that there's a characteristic group size. And if you're under this group size, if your group is smaller than that characteristic group size, then it's too expensive to use this external compass. But above this, above this characteristic group size, it's too expensive not to have the external compass. So such an external compass, which is entirely imaginary here, is just something that everybody is aligning themselves to, above a certain group size, allows faster synchronization, faster getting to a shared group level shared intentionality, and thus allows larger groups. And there came the idea, all right, so what would be the nature of this compass? Some kind of supernatural, unreal compass. And we thought, right, okay, it has to be seen as a perfect compass. It has to be, everybody has to be, right, this is perfect. There's nothing, this cannot make an error. And it has to be as believable as possible. Because if you go up to a bunch of people and say, well, let's share compasses, supernatural compasses, it's not going to work. It has to be that agents think, right, I really want to, this is something that I want to share my intentionality, I want to align my intentionality with. And that's where James said, wow, that's interesting. Because if I look at all kinds of supernaturals in the world, in literature, James is a literary scholar, then they have 4 main characteristics. They're omniscient, they're omnipotent, they are minimally counterintuitive, that is, you can believe them, and they are placed in a kin signaling, a kin network. And then we thought, that's very interesting. Maybe this is how religious traditions emerged. Maybe at the point where a group was trying to get bigger, and they were at this characteristic group size, maybe at that point there was a really charismatic leader. We just talked about it, actually, by the way, here. There was a really charismatic leader. And then when that leader dies, it's useful for the group to maintain the belief in this leader. And maybe we end up with some kind of ancestor cult. This is from Alaska today. That's from Europe 30,000 years ago. The Lion Man. I think still on in the British Museum. So maybe at that characteristic group size, a switch like that allows the group to grow. And hence, it's a trick that a group uses to achieve a larger group size. In fact, what we also showed, that if you evolve these, so if you allow the agents to choose whether they are having this trait, believing in this supernatural compass or not, above this characteristic group size, the agents evolve a belief in it. So maybe it's a solution. It's a solution to the group growth problem. And then we thought, so this is a solution to the coordination problem. But as the group then grows bigger, because we just have found the solution for that, we might have a return of the free riders. Because the larger the group is, the more complex technologies the society can have. We know that there's a very strong relationship, that the complexity of a technology of a society is almost directly related to the group size. And when you have complex technologies, you've got this weird situation, because you not only have to deal with the immediate friends, with whom you've got these primate-like dyad driving mechanisms, but suddenly you have to deal with some people who you just bump in occasionally. There's not frequent enough interaction to build up reciprocity. But you've got an omniscient, omnipotent supernatural. All you have to do, all the culture has to do, is link third-party punishment to the omnipotent compass, supernatural compass. That is, if I cheat on Andrew, somebody comes in and says, Andrew doesn't have to. Because we don't meet frequently enough. But somebody comes in and says, Tamás, you cheated on him. That was wrong. My payoff is being decreased by another punisher. But third-party punishment, the difficulty with these institutions is they're very expensive. Yeah? So if the police is a third-party punisher, it's expensive. They are paying with a risk to their life. But here you don't have to have them. You can just have the supernatural, which is omniscient and omnipotent, to come in and change the balance a little bit. So we argue that what you can have is that you can have big laws and then big institutions built up on the back of the original change at that characteristic group size, which solved the coordination problem, allowing an even bigger the rise of an even bigger group. So far, we have been growing these groups from one and having a problem with identifying the other group, realizing that if you are in a non-kin relationship, then you are going to meet some free riding problems. The solution to free riding is repeated interaction and hence the rise of reciprocity. But then that results in these social dyads, which will be limited. And then in large groups, you're not linked to everybody, which leads to coordination problems. I hypothesize that the projection, the perception of a supernatural dyad can solve this coordination problem, and then claimed that once you've got this omniscient, omnipotent compass, then you can build third-party institutions on them. And that will allow very large groups, because you can just occasionally bump into others and it's solved. But of course, once you get very large groups, you have another problem. Because what you've done is that with these rule-enforcing institutions, you've done away with the need to either having kin around or having your friends around. You don't have to have your brothers who will help you just because you are their brother. And you will not have to have a reliance on a series of one-on-one relationships, because the institutions and the law will do that for you. People will not cheat on you, or not cheat on you too much, because there are these third-party punishers around. And this does two things. First, it allows mobility within a very large group. You can just pack up and go off very far end of the, well, probably the empire, and settle down in a new place, build new relationships, and be in a different new kind of environment. Or the society can have its fertility go down. You don't even have any kin around, or many kin around. You've got much higher number of friends with whom you have to have these relationships, but they're not as expensive because there is this third-party punishment institutions around you which will deliver the rule of law. But then you have a very large group, and you have a new problem, which is the first problem that we had when there was only one person. Who is your group member? You're meeting random new people. So are they belonging to your group or some other group? So we have a new problem here. And what we see is a lot of these big ideologies and big religions use a set of kin cues, linguistic cues that will provide you with an emotional behavioral cue that will trigger a behavior that you will use others as if they were siblings to you. So you have father, sister, brothers, your mother, your ancestors. And we know that all religions use these kin cues. But just as we talked before, it's not only religions that use these kin cues. Nationalism uses kin cues. Communism uses kin cues. As we just discussed, personality cult uses kin cues. So suddenly, linguistic kin cues can create new units which will provide you with new identity markers, new tags, allowing an even larger group. But also, it doesn't have to be linguistic kin cues. It can be that your action is the cue. Your action is the marker of your group identity. So, do you know who this is? This is Raoul Wallenberg. I'm from Budapest. I'm from... Huh?
Von Neumann? John von Neumann?
Raoul Wallenberg. He was a Swedish diplomat who was in Budapest during the Holocaust and provided thousands of passes, risking his life, to Jews. And many of the Budapest Jews survived because he risked his life for a set of people who he never met and he was certain will never meet again. And I always wondered, because I'm from Budapest, I'm from central Budapest, and I always wondered, why did Raoul Wallenberg help this set of weird people? And I think maybe the hypothesis here is the answer. Maybe you can signal your group identity not only with words and symbols, but your action. Maybe for him, where he was coming from, the identity marker was that when you see people in that situation, you go and help. So we end up with a story that goes from very, very small groups to very large groups. It doesn't work. And suddenly you're allowed to have these enormous big groups. And we have an explanation to our original conundrum. Humans broke through that ceiling. First, large brain and language, but then with a belief in the supernatural compass. And I know I'm on very shaky ice when I say supernatural compass. But then that allowed the build-up of very large institutions and very large king queue systems. And maybe, and I'll now do a backward definition of religion. So maybe you could say that what we explain here is what's religion, a religious system. This is a bit cheeky. But then we would say that it would allow free riding managing institutions, and it will allow these very large king queue systems that allow highly mobile and low fertility large groups, which is exactly what we see today. We live in societies that have laws, institutions, and the global societies all over the place. Everybody's traveling all the time, migrating all the time, and fertility is under replacement level in most Western societies. But does it mean that you have to have a religion provide you all of this? Or is it just that these institutions and these ideologies or king queue systems came historically from a starting point of a supernatural compass? And in fact, what we see is a delineation of the supernatural, allowing interaction among many historical traditions. We see a secularization of law, and at the end we see one identity marker. You're a human. And that's it. So we might end up with a global society based on secular law without a tradition in religious thought, and a group marker in which everybody falls in. But that doesn't mean that the propensity for the supernatural compass, for believing in the supernatural compass, is not there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's much shorter than I thought.
We have we have questions up to about 35 minutes. We're going to about quarter to 10. So my colleague, Dr. Silver, will bring the microphone round. And if you want to wait till the microphone reaches you, then we'll catch your question as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamás. One thought that immediately comes to mind is that, for example, today in Iraq, Sunnis and Shias are bombing each other, many bombs. I'm an Orthodox Christian here in Oxford. There is a schism between which particular patriarch we go with. Are you not overlooking this whole kind of schismatic factor whereby religions grow, but people within those religions seem to hate each other enough to kill each other? This is working against this on a very fundamental basis. Just my first thoughts, really.
Well, I can't see why. So you've got I didn't mention that if you got group identity and group markers, the whole point of having group markers is you differentiate from your group from others. And you only need that differentiation if there's conflict among the groups. So I very much think that this might be part of an intergroup conflict, where if you are of a different group, that means that you don't have the trust, you don't have the legal protection, and you have a conflict among the groups. And this would facilitate the conflict because it will allow separate groups to emerge. My point is that group identity, that group marker, allows a larger group for that particular group. So it allows growing that particular group. Or put it differently, maybe this sounds like a bit of a cheat answer. So I would ask, you were telling me, Tamás, how to achieve larger groups. But why would societies want to have larger groups? And I would agree with your assertion or your implied assumption, is that intergroup conflict is why there might have been a pressure for during human evolution and maybe today for larger groups. Is a bit of less of a cheap answer this way?
Okay, well, I'll consider it.
You know, you have talked about groups. In groups, the binding force is eros, the love of flesh. But in Jesus, we are not group, we are solitary. The binding force is agape. So this group does not apply to supernatural Father, because we are sons of the Most High. So this natural thing go to the natural Adam and his sons.
What is the question then?
So the question is, so this group system does not apply in Christianity. What do you think?
So it's about love, the issue of love coming into it?
No, in Christianity you have to be solitary. You have to enter through the narrow gate. Narrow gate is only one person can enter, not a group.
So my hypothesis doesn't say anything about the content of these religious systems. Yeah, it says that you will have you can expect, you can predict that there will be highly complex cultural systems that could be simplified into these supernatural compasses. Yeah. But it doesn't say anything about the content of that complex cultural system.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tamás. That was really fascinating. I think I have two questions, but I'll just ask one for the time being. I was just reminded by your theory of any number of highly influential theories that have been produced by all sorts of scholars over the last 150 years about the origin of religion. And one element that comes up very often, whether it's in someone like Freud or in someone like Walter Burkhardt, is the problem that in the process of anthropogenesis, the importance of instincts in the causation of behavior is reduced, and that in some ways, when people say why, religion comes in to some extent to compensate for the fact that what you actually do is no longer driven by your biological makeup. And I wondered, and it's really a question out of ignorance, does modern evolutionary biology have dispensed with this kind of assumption, or is this something that could still come into your theory, or do you think it's really just it's really an assumption that we just shouldn't use any longer, and there is just a continuity from primates to human beings, and the only thing that happens is the brain gets larger and the groups get larger?
Right. So I would think that I've overly simplified when I was saying that there's one kind of dyadic relationships. So there are at least three dyadic relationships. So we have romantic relationships, kin relationships with our relatives, and friendship with those who we don't want to have a romantic relationship with, and who are not our recognized kin. And I would think that the level of instinctive, using your word, instinctive behavior is quite different in the three relationships. So in a romantic relationship, I would think that we just have a conscious source over a pretty hardwired behavior. We almost just observe what is happening to us. We don't really make decisions of who we fall in love with, for instance, who we consider as attractive. Even researchers of romantic relationship and pair formation fall in love. They can't control who they fall in love with. But the relationship with kin is kind of in between. You have a lot of hard wiring, a mother to a child, for instance. But of course, some of it will be affected by your experiences with that particular individual. You can have a good brother or a bad brother. You might have a very different relationship. You will have some conscious decisions about it. Some of it will be hardwired and instinctive. Some of it will not be. And with friends, it's quite far. Much of it is not hardwired. We know that friendship is really predictable of how frequently you see the other person. Yes, so you can. Sam Roberts, who was in Robin Dunbar's group, had a detailed study in which he showed that and actually in Oxford, he had a longitudinal study of students who moved away from Oxford, and seen how frequently they were moving, and they were all very close friends when they were in Oxford, and how frequently they were meeting afterwards. And he saw, as a function of how frequently they were meted, what was the emotional closeness. And what he found is that the less frequently, what he'd proven, which was the hypothesis before, that the less frequently you meet with those you used to be very close friends with, the lower emotional closeness you have to. So some of it is probably hardwired for friendship as well, but you have a lot of conscious, much more conscious effect on that. So that would suggest that this is true for all of our social relationships. It's going to be a mix of these three.
Back there first.
Conflict and warfare between groups of different sizes seems to have been a very important part of human evolution. A group can fight much more effectively if it has individuals who are willing to sacrifice their lives very cheaply. Religion does seem to have played a major role in that, from suicide bombers to the culture in the US Marines, for example, where religion is apparently very strong. Do you have any comments on the role of religion in creating such a warrior caste, as it were, such a self-sacrificing fighter caste?
So currently there are war is being used as one of the key frameworks to explain the rise of altruistic behavior and sociality. In particular, there's a group of researchers who think that intergroup conflict, violent intergroup conflict, in which the loser dies, and that means the entire group gets annihilated, allows the spread of altruistic gene. The problem with this, my problem with this, is that I don't think although mathematically it's a neat theory, I don't think there's any evidence for this have ever happened. So I'm not signing up for that strain. But at the same time, I do think that warfare played a very important role in human evolution, because it might have facilitated the emergence of some of the expensive traits that we have. So brain is a very expensive organ. because this entire system that produces speech is very expensive. If nothing else, is the code death is associated with that. Choking, accidental choking is associated with that. So you need to have, and we clearly evolved this. So you need to have some kind of explanation of what was pushing the evolution of these expensive traits. And you could say that intergroup conflict, violent warfare, play this role. If this is true, then the effect of a solution of a free riding, inducing an expensive behavior from the individual for the benefit of the group, might be exactly the same, but inherited not genetically, but culturally. And then, if you have this system in place, there would be just as this trait would work just as much as a third-party punisher coming in. So I would think that I would put religion in that category. But I'm not sure whether this helped. So I'm not sure whether you need to have a warfare model to actually push the rise of it. Yeah.
Opposite way round.
Yeah, right.
That if you have war, you need people willing to fight. If we look at actual human cultures,
yes,
religion has played an enormous role in creating people willing to fight.
Yes, I dodged that question. The reason is because I don't want to look at current religious behavior in warfare, because I'm not sure whether if somebody else was standing here and would make that point, which I think is a very fair point from your point of view, I would be very skeptical, believing that current behavior will be informing us. But you're right. So that might have an important effect, just like all the other expensive traits have.
Thank you. Do you believe, or do you think that the pinnacle of human development is a global society in which the common group identity is our common humanity? And if so, would religion have a part to play in that, or would we move beyond religion?
Right, I'm a scientist. This is a descriptive. This tries to be a descriptive model. Even actually, I tried to come up with predictions that could be testable. And maybe I could tell you a little one. When James told me about this mix of omniscient, omnipotent, minimally counterfactual traits of the supernatural, I made up a bedtime story for my children, in which our little doggy at night turned into a superhero. And sneaked outside and had her wings come out and a gun out and punished those who were stealing books at night from the school library. And it got totally out of hand, because every evening my children are begging me to have at least 2 or 3 of these chapters of this book. Now, constantly on the search for looking up topics that would be rule breaking, where our little doggy comes out at night and punishes. And I fooled around a little bit of changing it more unbelievable, and they didn't like that. They wanted to have the minimum amount. So that's how far I got so far. Testable hypothesis. As for the global society, I'm not sure whether it's good or bad, but what I'm saying what I'm trying to say at the end is that if you have several different religious traditions that might have independently gone through this process of the rise of the supernatural compass, through the rise of institutions based on them, and then these group markers, group identities, then you have several of these, and you want to have the people who are coming from this culture cooperate with each other, then probably the best is to delineate the institution bit, delineate the group identity bit. People will believe whatever they believe anyway, and have a new kind of framework, which I think is emerging. But whether it's good or bad, I have no idea.
you say a little bit about the agent-based modeling that you're using here? I'm a little confused at how you created the data sets, particularly for the third-party transmissions, and then how you modeled that.
Okay. Can I please divert from my original promise of not do any maths? Thank you much.
I can talk to you later.
Okay. I mean, I can do. So these are K regular n size groups. So everybody n size n agents. Everybody's got K friends. This creates a set of possible graphs. I pick a random graph from this set, and I will play the following little game on the agents. That everybody gets some information value, one number, on a dial, which is a compass. So from 0 degree and 360 degree is the same. So they can go around. And I will allow them to have meetings where they synchronize their information value along the edges. And say I run this until everybody has got 20 meetings. And at the end, I measure what is the average distance on the dial among the agents. What's neat about the use of the dial is you can't tell which direction it is going to end up. You can never tell what is the endpoint is going to be the convergence, but apart from very weird graphs, so for which you have to have K2, very weird graphs, it always converges. So I can measure the speed on a randomly selected graph. I just keep on drawing from that set. And then I see how I have some kind of arbitrary threshold, or where I say, right, if they are closer to that particular threshold, then they are able to do collective action. Yeah? And so that would be the thing. So they could pass on not only their own information on number, but they could pass on the number they heard before. And that would be the third-party information case. Have I answered the question?
Yes, they're exchange models. Yeah.
Well, in a way, yes. We made this up. It's a behavior synchrony model. So.
Thank you very much. I found that a very, very compelling narrative. My question is, it seems to me like there's a bit of a paradox in your presentation, in that perhaps if you come here and present this material to us, then in a sense that makes it less believable to us, because it unmasks a supernatural compass, and so we now know that any kind of supernatural compass, whether it's religion or human rights, has no ontological or metaphysical validity or rational validity. It's simply a group function. And so by presenting it, the material to us, in a way, but by your own theory, is an antisocial behavior, I suppose. So, but my slightly cheeky question is, how do you account for your own presentation, or should you share this material in a game theory kind of scenario if you find out about it?
Right, you caught me. Right.
The group, should you not speak?
Yes. You caught me. I'm not sure how to answer that question. I see your point. Right. So maybe going back to the globalization question. So if this explains how to do global good, so maybe it's not a bad thing to present it. But I haven't thought about it haven't even occurred to me if presenting this would have any ethical consequences or social repercussions. That's going to be a thought that's going to fester. Yeah, right.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. As far as I understand you, you said that you can estimate a certain group level, group size, beyond which the group would need an extra mechanism for synchronized cooperation. And you indicated the existence of two main thresholds. The first one is the size beyond which a group needs new form of religion. So this the religion you described, with supernatural agents having this particular four traits. Here, the little minor question I wanted to ask you. It is the second question, but it is connected. So, what do you exactly mean by this trait of these agents, which is kin signaling? Because I know all others, it is quite often enumerated in CSR, like the gods must be omnipresent, omniscient, and so on. But I don't really know what you mean by kin signaling. Yeah, so it's minor question. And but coming back to the main point, and the second, what is the second threshold, group size? On average, so beyond what achieved size, a group needs a new markers like these action markers and linguistic kin markers. Can you give me an average group size, or you elaborate it independently for every group? I don't know how it works in your system, and whether you can give me a certain numbers.
Right. No. Because so what we've shown that it's an abstract model. So if you have everybody's got the same friends, and you're trying to synchronize, at one point you need to switch to an external compass for it not to be too expensive, because the other one just deteriorates. The efficiency of synchronization deteriorates very, very fast with the increase of group size. But in humans, what would that number would be? I'm not quite sure. I tell you why. Because my computer processors, this is a very expensive thing to calculate. So my computer processor start running just for too long if that k goes too high. So for any realistic, so I see the function, yes, it's increasing, but I cannot really calculate the number. But weirdly enough, the kind of numbers, the kind of levels that come in are in line with Robin Dunbar's several layers of so 5 and 50 and 150 are somehow importantly come in. But I wouldn't want to read too much into it, apart from, this is how we are so far. As for the second question, as in when the second marker comes in, I think those identity markers are important in large groups, but you couldn't possibly estimate it. So whereas I think the first one could be possibly estimated, the second one couldn't possibly be estimated, because it's not only dependent on how large the group is, but what is the mobility pattern within the group, and what is the fertility rate within the group. So I would think that if you've got a fairly stable society, but fertility starts going down because maybe the society is going through demographic transition, then you will have the rise of I would predict that the kin Q systems will rise. Interestingly, nationalism rose a few decades after fertility started to fall in France. So that would be in line with this. Communism started to spread after there was a thinning of population in the First World War. That would be in line with that. Global mobility, migration is very high up, and you've got these global replacement systems. They're like human rights. But this is not an evidence. These are really examples, I think.
And with kin signaling, clarification.
Oh yeah, kin signaling. So the idea is that when you have a divine or a superhero, and I'm trespassing James's territory here, then you not only know that they are omniscient and omnipotent, and they are believable as you can get, but you also know who their brothers are, whether they grew up they grew up orphan or not. You will know whether they have any ancestors. Yeah, so you will have stories about them, which will place them in a very human-like environment, which will have to be, because it's human-like. It will have to have kin relationships involved. Maybe this is part of the believable bit. Maybe this is not a separate trait.
While I've got the microphone, I just want to inject a question here, because I'd like to speak on behalf of the free riders. So Aristotle, at the beginning of the Metaphysics, talks about the Egyptian priests, and he says that they spent their time doing useless things. They weren't out in the fields working, right? But then he goes on to say, if they hadn't had the leisure time to do useless things, they would never have invented mathematics, which would eventually allow people to model the origins of religion. So So, you could tell another story that in some ways religion actually permits the creation of free riders, people who do things for no material, perhaps even evolutionary benefits, like discover the Big Bang Theory or paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling, and that's part of the glory of our race. So let me try to challenge you with an alternative narrative.
Well, I think this was the last question I would have expected from you. But it's a great question. So I would think that if you have a stratified, this is going to be a bit of a technical answer because that's the only way I can now think of an answer. If you've got a stratified group, so you've got say 50 individuals and everybody have 5 friends, and there is some kind of status difference among them, and they end up so that the low status ones are at the bottom, and the mid status are in the middle, and the high status are high end. And you would have the introduction of this supernatural compass at the top of this. Then you would think that whoever is getting access to that shared supernatural direction, supernatural, not natural, then that just passing that information on would have a value for the group itself. Whether that's the abstract concept of a priest or of a priest class, I think that I would have to think about it. But there might be it. And then you say, right, okay, maybe they are cheating a little bit because some of the time they're not doing an arrangement of the alignment, but some of the time they are fooling around with that information, and then, gee, we've got mathematics coming up, we've got all this wonder coming out of it, all the science coming out of it. That's a very, I haven't thought about it. That's a great thought.
Just that there are other things to value as well as, if you like, the even material group benefit, and the human race is glorious, right? Okay, maybe that. Oh, sorry, just over there, and then come back. Great, thank you.
Thank you. Could you go back to the slide with the starlings in, please? I think it's... Yep. When I see that, I've seen this footage of starlings going back to their nest in the evening, and I know that there are millions of birds in a flock like this. It makes me think, well, hang on a second. What's going on here? Surely this is a group mind at work. You said a comment earlier that the flock does not exist in the mind of the bird. I can't see that as being true when I see demonstrations such as this, that the flock does exist in the mind of the bird. What's more, there is a group mind at work here. And I think that would be a more fruitful line to follow when trying to analyze what religion gives to humanity or what spirituality gives to humanity. Because at its core, the perennial philosophy, if you like to use Huxley's term, is that idea of the link between all of us to something other, to something we can't explain, which is the supernatural, as you say. And I think, when we see things at work in nature, working in such harmony, such precision, then we begin to understand that there are other things at work that we can't actually just, put an easy label on.
Right. So I have to apologize because I was working on this talk until very last minute, so I didn't put in all the academic citations, which I should have, and maybe next, if I ever give this again, I will. So there's a fantastic group in Oxford that's working on collective motion in animals. And they are in the zoology department, Alex Kachanik's group. And they have these incredible models where you would see a group of flocking birds flying. In fact, you would see 2 groups of flocking birds flying, and then the 2 would just pass across each other. And you would think, right, if you're just aligning yourself with those next to you, then surely this would break up, turn into something else. And then you see their computer simulation. 2 flocks going like this. And it turns out that if you tweak the algorithm a little bit, with which you are modeling these groups. And you're not only modeling who is next to you and who's the second next to you, but you're also you're aligning yourself as an individual agent, the direction of flight and speed. You have this. You have these very complex behavior of these groups, complex looking behavior of these groups, and you do not need to have the birds in the model. You do not need to have the birds to have any concept of the entire flock. Now, I'm not saying that I don't have it. I have no idea because I'm not a bird. But
they have very small brains, don't they? So in terms of that model,
to explain, you don't need it.
Yeah.
At all.
My first question was whether you have considered your theories in relation to Facebook and Twitter and these sort of bigger communications.
So I don't want to say that they are my theory. What was this? So Robin Dunbar, the social brain hypothesis, where it links up the size of the brain or the size of the neocortex with the group size, is Robin Dunbar's theory. It's not mine. I'm just his pocket calculator, so I do some modeling. We do Robin's group. We do quite a lot of work on Facebook. So some of the results about the kind of relationships we humans have actually are coming from Facebook. So, for instance, Anna Roski, who's sitting right behind you, we have a paper on female best friends in Facebook, and we detected that in a very large 112,000 analysis of 112,000 profile pictures, that the concept of female best friends is universal in humans. So we have some studies on Facebook. There is one study on Twitter which showed that there is a line somewhere between 100 and 200, so somewhere here on Twitter. So there's a very large number of people on Twitter who have a lot of followers. And when they tweet something, many of the followers will respond. But if you look at how many individuals, those who are having the original Twitter account to which the followers respond, how many people they respond back, that number grows as you get more and more followers, and peaks at between 100 and 200. It's a noisy data, but if you Google Dunbar's number and Twitter, it's going to be the first paper that comes up, and it's I think PNA, so it's a serious paper.
Thank you. I've forgotten the other half of my question.
I talked fast enough.
Are there not very large coordinated societies which do not use this model of, is it omniscience? What's the other word?
Omniscient and omnipotent, yes.
And
knowing everything and be able to do everything.
Are there not very large coordinated societies that do not model, that do not employ this concept of omniscience and whatever it is?
Might be. So
for example, the Chinese, for example.
So my claim is that this is the trick with which humans are able to move beyond a group size limit. Whether a culture then, to the extent the culture uses this trick, the supernatural trick, for building its laws and institutions on that, and building its group identity on that, is a different question. And I was bringing in, I'm not sure whether you're entirely right, but I will avoid getting into the trap of dealing with any particular religion, because there will be many people in the room who will know much more about it than I do. But even if you're right, I think I'm not sure whether that's important for the argument, because the argument is that the supernatural is you need to break through this threshold.
And surely about Indian society, I don't think they use the idea of, what is it? Omniscient, and what's the other word?
Omniscient and omnipotent. And
it's an equally large society.
Well, I don't think that. I will just repeat what I said. Right, I'm not sure whether you're entirely right, but I will not enter any particular religion. Any. Was this a
time is drawing to a close, I'm afraid, but
Ah.
we do. But I'm sure there'll be a few minutes after the talk for questions.
Yes, of course, I'm here.
Okay, so but just before I invite you to thank our speaker this evening, just want to quickly announce our next talk, which will be on the 7th of November. So it's a little bit of time. That's because most of the Ian Ramsey Centre will be in Brazil the 2 weeks previously. So that'll be Dr. Olli-Pekka Vanio, and he's from the University of Helsinki, and the title of his talk is Belief Formation in the Desert of the Real. Belief Formation in the Desert of the Real. And for more details, do check our website close to the time. That'll be on the 7th of November, Thursday, 4th week next term. Would you please now join me in thanking our speaker.